Hello, everyone. Hello there. My name is Charles Luanga. I teach at the University of Michigan. And welcome to you all. Welcome to African Pianism, a celebration of African composers. We have a series of pieces, as you can see from the program, that we're going to listen to. And then after this, we will have some kind of panel discussion. Please note that many of the performers will be complemented by visualizations of the musical form prepared by Dr. Aaron Carter Enyi. In the visualizations that you will see on the slides, arcs connect similar musical or lyrical content to illustrate both recursion and segmentation. You're encouraged not to focus though on these, unless you find them helpful. And then the American Musicological Society has generously commissioned 2 new works for this program. And these works are basically along Gimalabi's Earth Beats, and they're going to be the topic of presentations at the SMT interest group meeting tomorrow, Friday. And this is also listed on your programs. You can look at the time when this panel is going to be taking place and also the space where the panel will be. At this moment in time, I now take the honor of introducing the esteemed Halim Eldab, 1921 to 2017. Born in Egypt in 1921, Eldab attended the first International Ethnomusicological Conference in Cairo in 1932 when he was 11 years old. Independently from the contemporary experimental music in France, he created one of the first examples of tape music or musique concrete called the Elements of Zar, Taba al-Zar, which was completed in 1944 based on wire recordings of indigenous ritual songs. He graduated from Cairo University in 1945 and was invited to study at the University of New Mexico. He later received scholarships to Brandeis University and the New England Conservatory of Music. In 2001, he received an honorary doctorate from Kent State University, where he taught from 1969 to 2012. And in 2007, he received, again, an honorary doctorate from his alma mater, New England Conservatory. As an active composer, educator, and scholar within the era of Pan-Africanism, Eldab focused much of his later work on African instruments and African themes. He was the keynote speaker for the Fela Showande Memorial in Cambridge, England, in 2005. The speech acknowledged the many achievements of the Nigerian-born Showande as Yoruba chief, ethnomusicologist, music composer, and musician. Known as the father of Nigerian art music, Chief Showande and Eldab were close friends and colleagues at Kent State University during the 1980s. In an effort to bridge the cultures of Egypt and Nigeria, Eldab composed Symphony for 1,000 Drums, which was performed by 1,000 drummers in Ohio in 2006 and in Colorado in 2008. The symphony evokes the goddesses of ancient Egypt and Yoruba land. Hakim Eldab died September 2nd, 2017, quietly by the side of his beloved wife, Deborah, in Kent, Ohio. The never-before-seen video presented today is from an outdoor performance in Kent on June 30th, 2012, which Dr. Carter Enyi attended and recorded with Halim's permission. At about 40 minutes into the performance, Deborah asked Halim to play one of her favorite compositions, Lucia. Join me in watching the video. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for the subsequent performances, we kindly ask you to hold applause until the very final performance, in the interest of time. Now, the next piece is Eriri Ngeringe. This is a riddle by Joshua Uzoigwe, 1946 to 2005. Joshua Uzoigwe was born in Umuahia, Abia State, Nigeria, in 1946. Most of his early life was spent in the care of his older brother, Sunday, who was employed at the University of Ibadan. He then attended the prestigious Anglican Mission School of King's College. In 1970, Uzoigwe returned to eastern Nigeria to begin his musical studies at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. He then completed his undergraduate degree at the Guildhall College of Music in London in 1977, and his master's and doctoral degree in ethnomusicology at Queen's University, Belfast, in 1981. Uzoigwe lectured in music at 3 universities in Nigeria, starting from the Obafemi Awolowo University, Ife, then the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, and finally, the University of Uyo in Akwa, Ibom State. Professor Christian Onyeji, who was commissioned for the concert today, was one of his students. Since Uzoigwe's untimely death in 2005, acclaim has steadily grown for his compositions, partially thanks to the writings of African-born scholars, including Euba, who was also my professor, Mary Agatha Ozar, and Kofi Agau, who have celebrated Uzoigwe as a pioneering figure in African art music. Notably, he masterfully translated the intricacies of the indigenous music of his people, the Igbo, to the piano. The 2 works you will hear today are now standard repertoire at Nigerian universities and conservatoires, and have recently entered Western canons. Eriri Ngerinje is going to be performed by Quintenar Kara Enyi on voice and Aaron Kara Enyi on piano. Quintenar Kara Enyi is a doctoral student in musicology at the University of Georgia, where she is a Southern Regional Education Board doctoral scholar. Prior to graduate studies, she worked as a professional singer and choral director in Lagos, Nigeria. She's passionate about indigenous languages and is fluent in both Igbo and Yoruba. She frequently offers workshops in African instrument making at universities and conferences, including the African Studies Association and the Society for Music Theory. She recently completed a collection of 50 African choruses, which are available in open access at africangospelcelebration.com. Her scholarship appears in Frontiers in Psychology, Intersections, Music Theory Online, Performance Research, and Yale Journal of Music and Religion. Join me in welcoming Quintena on voice. And then Aaron Kara Enyi is a scholar in residence at Morehouse College in Atlanta. He holds a Doctor of Philosophy degree from Ohio State University, 2016. He was a Fulbright scholar in Nigeria in 2013 and 2019, and a 2022 fellow of the National Endowment for the Arts. His research has been supported by the American Council of Land Societies, the U.S. Department of State, the Mellon Foundation, the Wallace Foundation, and the Yale Ascend Initiative. His articles appear in Africa, Analytical Approaches to World Music, Ethnomusicology, Frontiers in Psychology, Intersections, ISMA Proceedings, Music and Science, Music Theory Online, Muziki, Oxford Handbook of Singing, Performance, Research, Perspectives of New Music, and Eternal Aspects of Languages. Everyone, join me in welcoming Kara Enyi.
Bombono wike merenguno bagide. Ayaka eringenge, ayaka eringenge. Chiri wambe se wambe, mbe anono no wanyambe sakporo yuku naya. Ayaka sakpọrọ ya okwu anaya sakpọrọ ya okwu naya sakpọrọ ya okwu anaya sakpọrọ ya okwu anaya anaya anaya
Dr. Andrew Aziz will now perform Uzoigwe's most widely performed work, Wukom, from the collection Talking Drums. Andrew Aziz serves as professor of music theory at San Diego State University with prior positions at Brown University, Rhode Island College, and Florida State University. He has published in journals such as Music Theory Spectrum, Music Analysis, Music Theory Online, and several others on topics such as form, Throughout the Common Practice, Billy Joel, and West Side Story. He studied classical piano at pre-college conservatories, as well as through his college years. He's currently working on a manuscript tentatively titled A Pianist's Guide to Musical Form, and serving on the editorial board of Music Theory Spectrum. Join me in welcoming Dr. Aziz. And now, my dear colleagues, the next piece is by Emmanuel Gimalabi, born in 1950 in Accra. Emmanuel Gimalabi is a Ghanaian composer, conductor, and music professor. He's a graduate of the Achimota School and a former conductor of the National Symphony Orchestra, Ghana. In 1971, Labi became a member of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation Orchestra, where he played cello and was also involved in composition. He was a member of the orchestra for 6 years. During this time, he also studied for a bachelor's degree in music and philosophy at the University of Ghana, graduating in 1976. His tutors included Ato Takson and J.H. Kwabenanketia. After graduating, Labi undertook further musicological studies at the University of Illinois and the University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music. In 1984, he began lecturing at the University of Nigeria and later at Mercy College in New York and the University of Ghana. Between 1988 and 1997, Labi was the director of the National Symphony Orchestra, Ghana. As a composer, his music incorporates indigenous musical practices. He married Mary Margaret Bleachers on 31st of August 1985, and they have one daughter. The piece is going to be played by Andrew Paul. Dr. Andrew Paul is an associate professor of music theory at Oberlin College Conservatory of Music. His research focuses on the music of the French ballet epoch. He holds a PhD in music theory from the CUNY Graduate Center and a master's degree in piano performance from the Mann School of Music, where he studied piano with Inesa Zareksky and chamber music with Jacob Latena, Judith Mendehall, and Diane Walsh. As a pianist, he's participated in regional premieres of songs and chamber works by contemporary composers such as Marga Richer, Sondra Clark, Gustav Hoyer, Anthony Inekon, and Timothy Collis. Join me, my friends, in welcoming Dr. Paul. The next piece, Ede, is by Sean Okpeholo, who serves as the Jonathan Blanchard Distinguished Professor of Composition at Wheaton College Conservatory of Music, where he mentors a new generation of composers and musicians. His ethnomusicological research in East and West Africa has shaped both scholarly and creative voices. He has taught and led master classes in countries including Nigeria, Uganda, and Kenya, sharing his music and learning from the traditions he encounters. Today, we will hear Okpeholo's Ede Ede from the collection Psalms, Hymns, and Spirituals from 2012, commissioned with the support from the Lucille Carlson Endowment for the Arts. This instrumental work is based on a Christian text in the Igbo language, which appears on the screen. And Dr. Christopher Brody is going to be performing the piece, and he's an associate professor of music theory at the University of Louisville. His research on musical form, Baroque music, and J.S. Bach has received awards from the Society for Music Theory and the American Bach Society. As a pianist, he performs frequently with students and colleagues, and is a member of the Louisville-based group, Nolu Chamber Players. Prior to earning his PhD in music theory at Yale University, he received a Master of Music and a Doctor of Musical Arts degree in piano performance from the University of Minnesota, as well as a Bachelor of Music in Piano Performance from Northwestern University. Let's welcome Dr. Brody. The next piece is RD, which translates into earth. This piece is by Nyokabi Kariuchi, a Kenyan composer, sound artist, and artistic researcher whose sonic imagination is ever evolving, spanning from classical contemporary to experimental electronic music, explorations in sound art, pop, film, African musical traditions, and more. The piece is going to be performed by Dr. Gilad Rabinovich, who is an associate professor of music theory at Queen's College in CUNY, where he enjoys exploring keyboard musicianship and analysis with musicians and music educators of the future. He has published widely on gallant schemata and historical improvisations in 18th and 19th century Europe, and likes to conclude scholarly talks with piano improvisations on audience suggestions. Join me in welcoming Dr. Rabinovich. My friends, the next piece is Kagoro Kundun. This is one of the pieces that was commissioned by the American Musicological Society. This piece is composed by Christian Onyeji, who is a professor of music at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. He holds a Doctor of Music degree from the University of Pretoria, South Africa. Christian is an internationally recognized composer and scholar specializing in research composition. This composition approach applies ethnomusicological procedures in the composition of contemporary African art music as a continuation of indigenous traditional music. His Christmas choral, Nihi Namuoro Ai Otunua, published by Oxford University Press, has been performed by choirs around the world, including the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. Amenala Buike received the Gold Cup at the 2007 National Festival of the Arts and Culture. Christian is also active as a scholar and serves as the liaison to Nigeria for the International Council for Traditions of Music and Dance. We are very pleased to present a new composition by Professor Onyeji, commissioned by the American Musicological Society for this particular occasion. Kagoro Kundun, which is based on a field recording by one of Onyeji's students, Ebrufia Omodoro, who graduated from the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, in 2022. We will now view a brief recorded excerpt of an ensemble performance, which includes the Kundun. This is the balafon. The performance was recorded on February 14th, 2025, in the Kagoro community of Kaduna State in Nigeria. Kagoro Kundun is going to be performed by Professor Anton Visho, who teaches music theory and skills at the University of Toronto. He's currently writing projects that range from a study of song, translation to the relationship of performance and analysis in contemporary music, to the musics of Rabindranath Tagore, Rainier Priox, Jeffrey Mumford. As a pianist, he has performed in several contexts, from the Nudufar Visual Piano Duo to the New Jersey Percussion Ensemble. He has presented several solo recitals in recent years, including 2 at the Montu School of Hankook, ME, and is currently preparing lecture recitals at the Ravoz La Tombeau de Coprienne and Messiaen's La Faveur de Jardin. Join me in welcoming Professor Visho. The final piece on our program, ladies and gentlemen, Ere Ayo, a study in African pianism, is by the composer and theorist Dr. Ayo Oluranti, who holds a PhD in composition and theory from the University of Pittsburgh. He was previously chair of the Department of Music at Mountaintop University and is the 2024 recipient of the prestigious From Music Foundation Commission from Harvard University. To celebrate 100 years of the International Society for Contemporary Music, ISCM, Ayo was commissioned to compose Mand Eve for Vertis Sonora. His opera, Omo Abe, was premiered by the James Madison University Opera Theatre in 2022 as part of the project that was entitled Enriching and Decolonizing the Opera. Ayo's Helele was premiered at the 2024 World Choir Games in Auckland, New Zealand. We appreciate wholeheartedly, by the way, the American Musicological Society also for commissioning Dr. Oluranti to provide a new work of African pianism for this particular program. Ere Ayo, a study in African pianism. Now this piece is an interplay between two modes, song and drum. The title, meaning a round of Ayo, game, references the Yoruba two-player turn-based board game, Ayo Olopon, which belongs to the larger family and Mancala games played across Africa, the Middle East, and beyond. The traditional game is not merely recreational, but also a social activity, often played in village squares or family courtyards, and usually accompanied by conversation, singing, or proverbs. While the piano work is primarily based on two sacred Ekiti folk songs, Ure Oluwa Sunmo Mi and Ikusalolo Domi, it partly draws drum patterns from Adedapo. Adeniye's Dumbi Ilu sound like a drum. A composition for cowbells, wood blocks, and piano. This new work will be performed for the first time in public by Dr. Robert Wells, who is an associate professor of music theory, director of keyboard studies, and associate director of the honors program at the University of Mary Washington. He also directs the UMW Indian Music Ensemble, which performs North and South Indian classical music. Dr. Wells holds degrees in music theory, MA and PhD from Eastman, and piano performance, M.Mas, from Eastman, as well as B.Mas from Furman. Wells' research interests include rhythm and meter, especially in Liszt and South Indian Carnatic music, and mathematical music theory. His performing repertoire features major piano works by indigenous and underrepresented composers, including Louis Ballard, Margaret Bonds, and Connor Chi. Please join me in welcoming Professor Wells. ask the composers who are present to stand up and, for an applause. Here is Ayo. So only Ayo was lucky to be here. And another round of applause to the performers. All the performers, please stand up. Woo! Now I hand over to Dr. Aaron.
Hello? Okay. We have 15 minutes for our panel discussion. I want to welcome up all of our panelists can start coming up. First of all, I'll acknowledge Charles, who has been narrating so far. Charles Lwanga is an ethnomusicologist, composer-theorist, and African percussionist. Lwanga holds a PhD in ethnomusicology from 2020 and a PhD in composition theory in 2012, both awarded by the University of Pittsburgh. His publications, including articles and reviews, appear in African Studies Review, Analytical Approaches to World Music, Ethnomusicology, and the Journal of Musical Arts in Africa. As a composer, Dr. Lwanga's creative output is grounded through the lenses of interculturalism, creative musicology, and African pianism. He is the recipient of the 2015 Robert M. Stevenson Prize, awarded biannually by the Society of Ethnomusicology to honor the best composition by an ethnomusicologist. He is also the winner of the 2025 Best Published Article from the African Studies Association. Also, we have Heng-Ki Choi, who is a music theorist and mezzo-soprano from Hong Kong. She teaches at Queen's College and previously served as an adjunct faculty member at the Hong Kong Baptist University, teaching music theory, ear training, and tonal and post-tonal analysis. In addition to her teaching experience, she was also a research assistant at the Chinese University of Hong Kong, examining the impact of Zoom pedagogy on music and history undergraduates during the COVID era. Outside of work, she has conducted pre-concert talks for the public as part of an educational outreach program in Hong Kong. She holds an MM degree from the Mannes School of Music and a BS degree in applied psychology from New York University. Choi is interested in understanding the impact of memory, emotion, and anticipation on the listener's perception of form and phrase structure. Charles and Heng-Ki will be joined by Ayo Oluranti, whose work we have just heard, and Quintina Carter-Enyi, who sang the Uzoigwe art song at the beginning of the program.
Thank you, Aaron. Now, this is going to be a little bit informal, because we really want to also engage the members of the audience as well. But ladies and gentlemen, you just witnessed African musical processes at the intersection also, with foreign musical and sonic materials. So what we just witnessed here is also the rich melodic as well as rhythmic sonic idioms that are trying to interact here with the pianoforte in order to articulate African musical processes and basically African musical languages. So mark my words here. I particularly say both melody, and rhythm. So, and the two are actually intersecting with each other. If you pay attention to the repetitive figures, they also act as a template upon which variations take place, and that is a very rich component in the music found in Africa in many groups that perform indigenous musics. Okay, so at this moment in time, we would love to start with any questions that you have for either the composer or for us regarding any of the pieces in terms of processes, composition, thought, forward motion. And please, we have a microphone here. Feel free to just walk over to the microphone and then direct your questions to the panelists.
How are you? This is for anybody who wants to answer. I'm not familiar with African music. So this was very interesting to me. And what you just said about the repetition becoming points of variation, if anybody here wanted to, what would be a source that we could go to look at this more on our own? Like,
there's the material by Sima Aram, polyrhythm and polyphony in Central Africa, which documents a lot of the structures in terms of pitch organization and how events are, organized in terms of rhythm. There is also the material by Nketia, the music of Africa. Incidentally, that's what we called it, not African music. It says the music of Africa, where he goes into theoretical depth. He establishes the fact that the situation is not homogeneous in Africa. What you find in the north of Sahara is different from what you find in the south of Sahara. And it paints a very good picture. Others too who have written on these aspects of the structural procedures and creative procedures include Kofi Agawu, and then Bodo Omojola as well. So,
what was the last name?
Bode Omojola. Omojola, yeah. And within those, within that group, you find a lot of materials, definitely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Could you let Hank Key talk a little bit about earth beats and the sources on that? Because there's a lot on those.
So I am presenting a paper on the piece Earth Beats, the fourth piece performed today at the Global Interculturalism Interest Group tomorrow. And for that piece, because we're talking about readings, the composer Jima Labi actually wrote a treatise on how to compose African art music. And that becomes very intriguing on what he understands as African art music and how to navigate this genre. And so I would highly recommend his treatise also, which is called Theoretical Issues in African Music, I believe. I could also give you the correct name once I have my computer, but that book, he explores what it means to compose African art music and what a Western composer can take note of when trying to compose in this genre.
Hello. Thank you so much for such a great piece. I really enjoyed it. I'm a little bit interested because I come from the sort of like the Lukumi Santeria tradition, and I heard a lot of things that I feel like I heard growing up in this music. In particular, yours, Maestro, like the last piece seemed to me a little bit. Kind of like a little collage of like different layers that I've at least experienced in the music. Like I heard like sometimes you hear the agogo, sometimes you hear the sort of like the call and response elements of it. I was just wondering what might be the difference between, say, my experience as someone from Latin America who has heard Lukumi, Santeria music, Yoruba informed, and this particular music, where in a way, what can I listen for in particular here that I can connect with in a way?
Yeah, thank you very much. There's a basic thing which I tell people. Polyrhythm is polyrhythm. Yeah. Whether it's used in Africa, whether it occurs from the time of Palestina, it's all over. It's a technical element, it's a theoretical element. Yeah, probably, arguably, one structural feature that you find all over Africa is call and response. That's call and answer thing. It goes beyond music. You find a parent coming in and saying hello to everybody in the home and everybody chorusing at the same time. Have you eaten? Yes, we have eaten. Are you okay? Yes, we are okay. Even at work, even in places of worship, you find that. Is that unique to Africa? I don't think so. You find it in Latin America, you know. So, I mean, it's easy for you to pick that in the music. But then there are the nuances, you know, the length of the calls, the answers, how they vary, and how they become structural pillars. You know, then that brings us into the domain of, creativity. You know, but you find also it's very true that you would relate with certain things, you know, because they are not unique to Africa anyway. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for organizing this. One thing that I noticed, especially in the piece by Karaoke, was it just reminded me of like Reichian minimalism, and we know that like Reich was inspired by Ghana drumming, and so there seems to be this dialogue between these traditions. And so I was kind of curious, some comments if you had any on like what do you see, how close of a relationship are there between these styles? Do you see that as a dialogue? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Hi everyone. Yeah, so I interviewed Karaoke a while ago, and one of the things that I picked that she said is her inspirations always comes from dialogues between her family members, say her mom and her brothers in the farm, or dialogue between the birds and, you know, people listening to them, you know, and trying to understand what it is that they are saying. Actually just make stuff up that the birds are saying, but there is a piece that she wrote about feeding mangoes to goats, or goats eating mangoes, and it's kind of like a dialogue between the chewing and the crying, and then people talking in the background. So for her, dialogue is a big part of her composition, and everything else that is going on in the background. But the things that you can hear in the recording that is close to your ears and those that are far off. She actually has like recordings that are she extracted from nature that inspired her compositions. So yeah, dialogue is a huge part of it. I'm not sure, does that answer your question? Does that answer your question? Okay.
There is also an addition here on the notion of minimalism and its relationship to, you know, kind of.
Yeah. One thing, though, that I'd like to note, a lot of contemporary composers in Africa now are looking towards traditional genres for inspiration, and looking at how music is organized. And one thing that comes to the fore is that a lot of traditional music in Africa is extremely minimalist. You know, extremely minimalist. You have a whole piece, like, the piece by Joshua Zogwe that we listened to. The first 100 measures, I think, are based on 4 or 5 pitches. You know, you don't have very intricate lines in terms of, intricate combinations of time components. You just have things arranged based on 8th note rhythm, 16th note rhythm, and it doesn't go beyond that. And that comes directly from traditional music. That is emphasized in the works of Steve Reich, you know, who also, you know, excavated the theoretical template behind drumming. And what do you find there? Very simple things, you know. So, and then when it comes to the domain of pitch, what you find a lot in Africa is pitch centricity, fixed harmonies, you know, very light things. And then, so I believe that a lot of this is coming from the traditional genres, you know, people understanding them the more. Thank you.
In the interest of time, Aaron, I think we only remained with 1 minute. I would love to say that some years ago, Professor Kofi Agawu also made this interesting had this interesting lecture, I think, at Harvard. That lecture, I guess, should be on YouTube, where he employed 38 music examples to counter-argue. You know, there was a group of some scholars and composers that were actually saying, yeah, minimalism is, you know, something that the Africans are now trying to copy over from, you know, the Western minimalistic school. And he was telling them, what are you talking about? You know, that's probably not the ideal, but what is actually happening in the actual sense is this transnational communication, you know, rather transnational exchanges, you know. Steve Rock comes to West Africa, understands in depth these musical processes and actually does really very creative things about them. If I were me, if I were Professor Kofi Agau, I wouldn't need to use 38 music examples anyway to make the point, but he used 38 different examples in that interesting lecture where he really needed to make that simple, you know, one argument, that by the time the minimalistic school actually took over here, African music has always, you know, basically been based on, you know, a minimalistic template. And so what we have now is that exchange that is going on now between the composers in the global north and then the global south. So which is a very interesting conversation that we should actually have, because using the pianoforte already, which has lots of you know, interesting elements, you know, think about the melorhythm, the percussive characters that are also, you know, very present in some of the instruments here. It gives us an opportunity to get into that conversation, because you're not going to bring over here 100 drums. You don't have 100 professional drum players here, but we can use some of these instruments and even employ extended performance techniques in order to share this beautiful culture that deeply, you know, is rooted in the culture of the people and goes beyond even the sonic attributes to even penetrate and enter into the lives, the social lives of the people that make this music in the first place. So with that, I thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're out of time. Time is done, and I think there's a different group that's going to use this room. But one more round of clap to this wonderful panel, the performers, and all of you. Thank you.